Good morning. My name is Adam Carey and I'm with my colleague Mansour Ahmed, and we're here to walk you through this webinar for year-end processing in Microsoft Dynamics GP. Just going to pass you on to the next slide, which is really a bit of housekeeping. So just a couple of notes to make. The session is being recorded for prosperity. We've set all of your lines to mute so far, and we're going to keep it that way until towards the end of the presentation. But there is a little questions box that you can enter into throughout the presentation. And what we're going to do is towards the end of the, once we've finished going through the demonstration, we're going to then show the questions and then go through them and answer them as we go.
Good morning, my name is Mansour Ahmed. So here today we're looking at the year-end close process in Dynamics GP. So first of all, why? As you can read, the year-end close routine for Dynamics GP is used to ensure all the modules are closed. Key purpose is, yes, to clear down year-to-date figures in sub-ledgers, posting forward relevant balance sheets and P&L items. You'll probably notice in Dynamics GP, as you've been using it, you see various terminologies as open and history in various modules in various areas. Well, this is where the year-end process comes into play. Transactions are marked as historical once a year-end has been done. They're moved from the open, various tables. We don't need to go into the technical side of things, but basically it helps us with our year-to-date and life-to-date figures. It also ensures the processes are carried out that reconcile, enables us to reconcile our sub-ledgers. It's always a good time of year to reconcile our purchase ledgers, sales ledgers, inventory, fixed assets, etc., and make sure that all our balances are correct according to balance sheet. These are known also as balance sheet reconciliations.
So, a couple of little steps to think about before we close down the year. Obviously, the most straightforward of which would be to make sure all of your transactions are posted for all of your sub-ledgers. So that would be your fixed assets, any sales or purchase transactions, and any journals that you've got entering into the system. It's just a case of making sure everything that needs to be finished off for the year is done for the year. And then this is just a little aside, just to make sure that there's no processing that goes on once you're actually in the process of putting your year-end close. It's to make sure all of your other GP users are logged out of the company. There's a couple of reasons for this. There is a backup which we're going to be taking of the data, just to make sure that everything's saved in place of any, should there be any problems or any issues with the process, which ultimately will only come down to the fact that it's a network problem or like a system-wide power cut as such. It's just making sure that you've got everything in place. And also that nobody else decides to log in and start processing transactions while you're in the process of closing it down. And the other thing to make sure you've got in place is obviously that you've got your new year created within GP. So I'm just going to switch across to Dynamics GP. This is GP 2018, and this is the Fabrikam test company. So, a couple of little points to put in place ready for year end. Obviously making sure that the new year is in place. So the creation of the new financial year is done in the administration window. You might need to have certain user security roles and assigned to you for this. But if I go to the administration window and if I expand that, you'll see that there is a number of options that are available. One of them being financial periods. Anybody that's done any month-to-month end processing will know this window because it's the one you go into to make sure that nobody else can post into certain other financial periods. So I've automatically got my new 2028. Obviously, this being the Fabrikam test company, they're a couple of years into the future to make sure that we don't process. You're in the financial period setup window. It is just a case of creating the new year if it doesn't already exist. So 2028 is there. So 2028 is sitting there ready to go. It should have populated all of these accounting periods for me. And then the idea being is that if you need to change your accounting periods, the start dates, it just works on a basic calculation of when your start and end period is and how many periods you're going to calculate. it'll work those out for you. You can obviously go in once you're in here and update the period IDs and the start and the end dates. So again, it's just making sure that you've obviously got the new year in place. Once that's in play, it's then making sure that you've got all of your database backups done. So ultimately, you would normally advise your IT department to be involved in this situation and this process, because they will normally have access to the SQL server that runs all of your data, and they will have the details of how to process these backups into the system. And it's always wise to do a backup of the Dynamics database, which is the database which holds all of the, it's kind of the holding area for all of your companies within Dynamics GP, and also the company that you're going to be running the year-end process within. Just switch back to the PowerPoint.
So, pre-close questions. Some of the questions I suppose users will ask is, can I post transactions into my new financial year before closing? Simple answer, yes, of course you can. However, there is a slight exception with the fixed asset module. You have to perform your fixed asset year-end close before you can post into future periods. Now, as most of you are avid Dynamics GP users, you probably know people have a different year-end process. They'll have some have year-end dates of 31st of December, some will have it as 30th of March, etc. You go in either tax year. Typically, most people, they will close after adjustments have been done, maybe sometimes in cases of audit adjustments, waiting, could be weeks, could be months. So yes, you can post into future periods, prior periods, before year-end processes have been done. Will transactions be deleted from history? No, of course they won't. Basically, simple one is in the financial ledger. When you look at the general ledger setup, there are some options here, as you can see where I'm circling. It says maintain history. So as long as these options are ticked, this is one of your prerequisite checks before you run a year end, to make sure maintain history is checked. And it does exactly what it says on the tin. Maintains your accounts, maintains your transactions. You can also tick maintain budgets. For the more recent versions of GP, I think 2015 forward, where budget transactions are also now maintained. You also have one more area where you can tick options to maintain history under the sales ledger. So if you go to receivables setup, and then we click on options, there are some tabs at the bottom which say sales history include. So what do you include in there? Do you include sales, discounts, freight? If you don't include any of these, once you've run a year end, you will only have summary level or not the details that you have unticked here in the case of miscellaneous, freight and discount. I'll now pass it back to Adam for order of service.
So the year-end process ultimately needs to work in an order to make sure that it goes through in a correct manner. And that's the recommended order of service from Microsoft, is to deal with all of your sub-ledgers first, and obviously then finish it off with your general ledger close, which is the most important part. And with regards to the modules that we've got in the screen in front of you, obviously the inventory module is probably the least transactional posting, because most of the transactions that go through that are via the sales ledger or the purchase ledger. So that's the reason why it's first in the list. You're then working your way through receivables management and payables management, through to fixed assets, and then finally the general ledger close. We're going to now transfer through to GP and stay in GP for a little period now to then go through the different year-end close processes. So back in Dynamics GP. So we're wanting to go to the inventory homepage. So again, once you're within the system and you're using your way around, if you've got shortcuts or quick links assigned to them, then that's fine. I'm just using the generic homepage. So we're going into the homepage window, and again, there's a little kind of process or thought process of how you go through these. I mean, ultimately, the obvious one, harking back to what I said at the very beginning, is making sure all of your transactions are posted within the system. And as far as the inventory module is concerned, that's to do mainly with stock checks and inventory transfers. So again, it's just making sure you don't have any batches outstanding. There's a couple of utilities that we can run. You've got a reconcile option. I'm not actually going to run this because this can take quite a while depending on how many inventory items and how much sort of transactions go via your inventory module. But ultimately, the idea behind this, and this is quite a nice little feature to include at year end, because what it's going to do is it's just going to go through, and anytime where there's a reconcile option within GP, it's ultimately going back into the tables which are holding all the information, and it's then just making sure all the data is correct, all the connections between all the database tables in the back end are correct. And what the reconcile will do is it will go and it'll do counts of what the transactions have been posted through the system, match them all together with all the different inquiry and summary windows, and it will come up with a report, which obviously I'm not going to run because we don't have a couple of hours sometimes to run through today. But again, it's just a case of going in to this window, clicking the process button, and it will run off and continue this process. And at the end of that process, it will print a report for you, which will tell you if it's found anything that was that it needed to reconcile. So if it had a summary value that didn't add up to a detailed value, it will tell you where it's made those changes. Obviously, outside of the GP system, you've got your inventory warehouse somewhere. It's a case of making sure that the reports that you printed off and the options that you have, your stock count schedules and reports that you've got, they match. Because obviously what you might need to do is you're running off these processes at the end, you're printing off your reports, and then the warehouse manager's turning around and telling you that his values don't balance back to yours. So again, it's just making sure that all of those little dominoes are lined up, ready to go. Of the reporting that you've got, there are a plethora of reports within GP. So without going through all of them, you've got obviously your item reports, item lists, price lists, kit lists. You will have a internal accounting process of the reports that you want to print off on a monthly basis to make sure that your inventory module balances back to everything else in GP. It's a case of making sure that all of those are printed off, because as we all are aware with GP, the reporting is kind of an at that moment report. So if you're printing off a report of your stock count and then you go off and post transaction entries, it will then, obviously, you rerun a report, it will always show the latest data that's available to you. So it's just making sure that all of those are done and out of the way. Once you're happy with all of those, you've got all your reports printed off, you've run your reconcile, you can then come into the utilities window and run the year end. So if I open up the year end window, you've got a couple of options that are available to you. Mainly to do with removing certain items of information from within Dynamics GP. So of these remove items, you've got discontinued items. So if you have got discontinued items, and obviously once you've moved all the historical data out of the way, which is what this process is going to do, it can pick up discontinued items and get rid of them. And if you're using inventory lots and sold receipts from the inventory module, okay, by ticking these options and setting your date, it's a case of making sure that matches back to your year-end date. It'll remove those from the system once the year-end process is completed. You've then got an option down the bottom to update the standard costs. So if you're using the cost module in inventory in inventory and GP, you can have that update the standard cost. It's calculations that are done in the background. So these are just some of the main options that you've got available to you. And then simply it's just a case of clicking the process button. GP will then run through very quickly as it does and run the process. And because you've already run all of your reports, it won't actually print anything off when you've run that utility. It's done all of its options, it's finished those off, and it's quite happy with that. That's the process. It's one of the few areas of GP where you actually run a routine and it doesn't actually print anything off for you. What it will have done, as I said, it will have updated your costs. It would have removed any of your discontinued items, ready for the next year's processing. And that's the inventory module completed. Quite reasonably straightforward. We're now going back to our order of service. And the next one in the list we're going to be closing down is receivables management. So again, moving to the sales ledger, we've got our windows available in front of us. And ultimately, as far as both the sales ledger and in a moment the purchase ledger, all of your processing has been done. There's not much that you're going to sort of be utilizing for the year-end process. It is generally just an area to go through and update year-to-date figures and move them to your life-to-date figures, which are mainly in your inquiry windows. So you've got your summary inquiry windows at the side here. And if I go into my yearly summary and I go to one of my debtor accounts, you'll see I've got a number of year-to-date transactions sitting in a column and a number of life-to-date transactions, which for the test company and GP is not unusual for them to be the same numbers. But ultimately, as far as the process is going to do to close the year end off, it's a case of just moving the figures out of your year-to-date calculations. Couple of options to think about before that goes into place. This would ordinarily be a periodic, sometimes it's a quarterly process, but you've got your paid transaction removal option, which is a routine that you would run. The idea behind this, as you know from the sales ledger, it keeps the sales transactions open once you've applied your cash receipts fully to them until you've gone in and ran this process. We do have some clients that rarely run this process and others that are very quite stringent with it and run it all the time. You know, just as a year-end process, it's not going to delete any history or any data out of the system. It is just going to move transactions from an open state into a historical state. But it's just an idea to get into the habit of making sure that you've run your paid transaction removals at the end of the year. This will then go through, update all of your customer accounts to clear off the transactions that are no longer open. And then it's just a case of running your year-end close. So again, it's another routine for year-end close. So this window will open up and it'll tell you here if you've run year-end previously, the last time it's been run. Obviously, this is my test system, so you can see that it's never been run before. And you've got a couple of options for which year to close. You can just leave that set to all. It's going to work on the basis that it's closing down your financial year and your calendar year, and it'll update those two numbers with you. And again, all this is going to do when we run this is print off a report and then update your figures. So again, my system's dated at the right date, so it's going to run as at the end of the year. Click on process. I'm happy to continue with the year-end close. Yes. And again, it's just then a case of which reports you want to print. So this is going to close off some summary reports for you. I'm going to print mine to screen. It's always an idea to maybe send yours to file, or, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about sending them to printer because some of these reports can generate a lot of pages. But again, you can always send it to file here. Your basic options that you've got available to you, a text file. And then you've got a backup of your reports as you printed them. Click on OK. And again, it's just going to now give me a detailed summary of what it's done. I just expand that window. And it's just telling me my year-to-date figures and the fact that what it's done, it's moved them all of my open items to my life-to-date. So again, it is just a summary of what's gone on for the sales ledger for that year. I'll close that. And then it's giving me a salesperson report. Again, not all of you will be using salespeople, but if they're set up in the system, it will give you a report of how the salespeople have done for that year, any commissions they've earned, if you're utilizing that bit of functionality from within GP. And then finally, sales territory idea. And then that's your sales ledger closed. And if I now go back to my yearly inquiry summary window, you'll note that all of my year-to-date figures have now moved to my life-to-date figures. And again, this being the Dynamics GP test company, most of my year-to-date figures and life-to-date figures are the same. But you would expect to see last year's figures and then a total accumulative life-to-date figure. And then it's cleared out, ready for transactions to post into the new year. Again, moving forward to the purchase ledger now. So that's it for the sales ledger, quite nice and easy. Purchase ledger, similar kind of process. We've got a routine to do your year-end close. Again, some other options that are available to you to take into consideration at year-end will be to remove your completed purchase orders. Again, this isn't a requirement of the purchase ledger year-end close, but it's a nice little thought to put into place. And if you're using purchase order processing, it will just remove your completed purchase orders to history. Just tidies the system up, and ultimately the year-end process is quite a good time to sort of get all of these little jobs done and out the way. And again, if I utilize and go to one of my creditor yearly summary reports, inquiry windows, we're effectively doing the same process in the purchase ledger that we did in the sales ledger. We are just updating to tell it when one year ended and when the next year started. So I'm going to go to my year-end close, and it's a very similar looking window to the last one. I've got the option to print my report, and then I've got a button down the bottom. Again, I can select the years to close as the financial and the calendar. We can just leave that set to all. I click on close year, and again, it's going to print up my standard report to screen. And much like the sales ledger had, it's just printing off a report telling me what transactions have gone through the purchase ledger for that year and summarised as to what it's cleared off. It's updated that I've got my financial year closed, and that's your purchase ledger finished off.
Hello, I'm back. Right, so Adam's kindly talked us through the sub-ledgers, inventory, receivables and payables. Another ledger to focus on before we move on to the big one, which is the general ledger, is your fixed assets. With the fixed assets, as explained, you have to close it off before you can post to any future periods. There is similar due diligence that we must complete to what Adam has explained with the purchase ledger, sales ledger and inventory. Again, I suppose it's for us accountants, it's a bit of old hands, make sure we've posted all of our transactions, all the batches are cleared down, our year-to-date depreciations are as we expect. If there's any depreciation adjustments, we need to make sure we have accounted for them, and we're ready for the year-end close. Once we're ready for the year-end close, under the financial tab, again, under routines, you have the fixed assets area. And if you navigate down to fixed assets, you'll see there is a year end. Now, again, as Adam has explained, we are using our Fabricam, the World Online test database here. So here they have 3 fixed asset books. Typically in the UK, we only really have one. It's mainly to do with the American tax system, etc. So, so basically in our case, we'll have just the one book visible to us. It will tell us what the year is that is closing. It automatically updates the date range here where it says fiscal 2027. So I'll just do the one for now. You basically insert it onto the right hand side where you've now got the selected books. Like I said, if you had multiple books, extremely rare in the UK. However, if you do have some US operations or any other overseas operations where you do operate multiple books, you'd select all the books that you wanted to be closing, highlight them, and click continue. Once you start the year-end process, click continue again. Gives you some information. Assets have not fully been depreciated for the last fiscal year. If there are any, do you still want to close? Similarly, you get messages on other year-end closing just telling you there are open batches, unposted batches. Some of these may well be genuine batches that you have, but it's still advisory. It's giving you some information, and off you go. You have some reports. Again, I typically print all my reports to screen because you just never know how big a report may be. So that way, you know that it's not going to clog up your printer. And here we have it. We have our report. Gives us all our figures. We can then print this off, save it for our audit files. It's a good time to also go and run various fixed asset reports that you run regularly on a week-to-week, day-to-day, month-to-month basis. These are either obtained from your report section. A lot of clients, they tend to use SmartList for various reports. Please do run these reports. Make sure the figures look okay. As we mentioned before, and we mention it again, we will say it quite a few times actually, the whole key purpose of taking a backup right at the beginning is that if there are any anomalies, you need to identify them before you start processing after your year end, so that if you need, we need to do a restore, or we can reverse a year end in the GL. I know we're making it sound as if it's a very big deal, but you'll be surprised. It's just better to be safe. You always take a backup before you run these processes. Once we've ran a year end, this is optional. There is a summarized financial element. Basically, with the summarized financial, you can summarize financial data by asset record, by book record and transaction account type, and specific periods at any time during the year. Summarizing the asset data frees up hard disk space. If you are running low on the servers, I'm sure your IT people will be notifying you that your disk space is reaching maximum, but again, that's for the IT to handle, to increase the disk space. But if you wanted to keep it nice and tidy, running summarize will reduce your data size, but I must emphasize, not significantly, purely depends on the number of transactions that you have. So once you know the date that you want to be summarizing, what typically it will be the beginning to the end of the date, beginning of the year to the end of the year. Once you've put that in, click OK, you'll get a series of reports, and that's your data summarized. So we've dealt with the subledgers. So once we are finished with the subledgers, we then move on to the general ledger. Now, the general ledger, there's a few more ticks and checks that one would run to make sure that everything is in place. Adam has already set our date to the end of the year. That's the first thing that we would do. We would also then maybe take another backup. You can never have too many backups, as we say. Take another backup, make sure that everything is okay with the IT people. When we move on to the general ledger, again, like with the previous ledgers, make sure that you have posted all your adjustments, all your transactions, all your journals, which you have, maybe if they're accrual journals, prepayment journals, whichever, that need to be posted, that they have been posted into the correct prior periods, and you are ready to proceed with your year end. Another good check that we can run here is doing what we call printing an account list. Now, account lists are very important. You will be surprised with us being consultants, the amount of times that we have come across issues, and certainly our support desk as well, where accidentally year ends have been run when GL account codes have been incorrectly marked as either balance sheet or P&L. These have quite a significant effect on the year end, as you can imagine. With balance sheet, the balances are carried forward. With P&L, they're transferred into your retained earnings. And if either account is marked incorrectly, you can notice that it will either give you an incorrect returned earnings figure or an incorrect balance brought forward figure. So it's very important to make sure you check your account codes. We can run various reports from under reports routine. We can check our posting accounts. We'll just use the demo one here. typically I like to go into modify just to make sure that my destination is set to screen, and we can then print. Make sure here that all of our accounts are correctly identified as balance sheet or P&L as we want. Also, quite a few people, they will use SmartList. SmartList is also a very good place to get such reports. Come into SmartList. Under the financial tab, there is accounts, and we can use the standard one which comes out of the system, and again it will tell us the posting type. We can do various filtering, we can export it to Excel and check to see. Right, there we go. Close that out. Yeah, press. Okay, so once we're happy with all of our account codes, that they're correctly identified, we would then come in and close the prior period. The prior period for the year. So in our example here, it would be December for the prior year. In the general ledger, you come down to setup. Sorry, beg your pardon. In administration, you would come down to the company setup and come to financial periods, which Adam showed you earlier on. We would select the year. I'm just increasing the window here so we can see a bit more. There we go. We can do a close all from here. Typically, a lot of people, what they do is they're closing the periods as they've been going through the year. So you'll see a number of ticks here, or you can just close them all if they haven't been ticked as such. Close the years, done. So this is just closing the period. So it's stopping any posting going into these periods. Again, if you're following official protocol and official procedures, we would say take a backup at this stage as well. There is an optional further maintenance. This is the reason why you take a backup at this point. This maintenance is called check links. Now, this is a data integrity check. It checks all of your data to make sure all the information is in the correct tables. It has correct headers, lines, etc. There does tend to be, over a period of time, sometimes you have orphaned records. Things which just get left behind in maybe temp tables from you may have had batches of various transactions, you've deleted them, some of the residual data is left behind. Check links checks the integrity of all your data, make sure everything is okay and good to run. If you were to run a check links, I'm not going to run it just yet because it can take, depending on the size of your data, it can take quite a while. I'm just navigating to it from Microsoft Dynamics GP, come up to maintenance, and then there's a check links option here. Typically, you'd run the check links for all the modules that you are using. So you have financial module. If you do a drop down, you can see sales, purchasing, and inventory. And when you are in these modules, you'd click on all to transfer all. And you can see there's currently 51,000 records that it's going to run check links on. These are all the various tables in Dynamics GP. And similarly, you can run it all together. You can add the sales, you can add the purchasing all into one list and run it all together. Like I said, can take a bit of time, but I would stress, please, please, please make sure you take a backup before you run a check links. There is no undo facility on check links. Once check links has been run, again, another check that we always tend to perform is we would come back to financial, and again I would come down to the general ledger and just make sure that they should never become unticked unless somebody has actually unticked them from the date of inception of your system. But I always find it prudent and a good practice to always come in and just double check to make sure that the maintain history ticks are present. Once we can confirm that, we can close out. At this point, I would advise to print what we call a final summary trial balance. Again, I would come up to our financial reports, trial balance. I would come to summary, and you guys will probably have various report options that you've built up over the years. Everybody has their own one, labeled various things with various options marked. Print the report that you most regularly run for your trial balance, put it to one side, because then what you want ideally will be doing is, once the year end has been performed, you will then be comparing it to just make sure that you're happy with the balances that have been transferred, brought forwards, carried forwards, and the ones that have been transferred to your retained earnings accounts. We've already gone through the setting up of the new year. Again, we're being prudent here. You'll see we have this phrase, being consultants, and it's backup, backup, backup. Again, you can perform a backup. If I'm being realistic, when we have done year ends for various clients over the years, as consultants, what we would do is we would have everybody out of the system. We would take one backup right at the beginning, and then we would start with our year-end checks and balances, and then we would do our various module closures. Depending on the results that we get, we could decide to maybe do another backup just before the check links. Other times, if the year-end process for the sub-modules didn't take a huge amount of time, we can just say, okay, one backup is fine because we've got it right at the beginning of the process. So if, in the worst case scenario, we were to revert, we'd go right back to the beginning. The reason why we're taking backups at different stages, or it's a recommended step, is that you can restore back to that particular process or that particular moment in time, should you wish. So again, you can take a backup at this stage. So now we move on to the fun part, as they say. Just adjusting my screen, beg your pardon. Right, so under routines in the financial, we come to our year-end close. Now, in here, we see what the retained earnings account is. It is a good thing to check that that is the account that you want it to go to. So you can hit this little blue arrow here, and it will tell you that, yes, this is the account, this is the description of the account. Should you be happy with it, you can accept it. It will tell you what the next starting journal is for the following year. Rarely have I seen where people have different starting numbers for different, based upon the years. Like, for example, I'm going to give you an example, that maybe clients want to start the journals with 2018 for the 2018 year, 2019, 2020, etc. Majority of the time, I've seen people just accept the journal entry number that it's suggesting here because it just carries on in line. It's more for audit purposes as well, that you can track back all the journals that you've posted. So you have some options here. Remove unused segment numbers, should you wish to remove them. As you know, you have different segments in Dynamics GP. If there are any segments that you've created over the years or even in that year and never ever used, do you want to remove the segments that you haven't used? Do you want to? The other option here is that when you're running a year end, if there's any inactive accounts which have zero balances from prior years, it will clear those accounts out, it will delete them. If you feel that you do not want those accounts to be deleted because there may well be a future need for them, you can tick this box here, maintain inactive accounts, and it will maintain those accounts regardless of what the balance is and that they are marked as inactive. Once we're happy with all the results here, we would simply click on close year. Again, it's giving you that message. I must stress that these messages are at best informative. They're telling us that there are batches sitting on the system, which you want to make sure that these batches don't have any transactions relating to the prior year, etc. You will always get this, and we always find it on site that there are always batches which are unposted, not necessarily for the prior year, but even for the current year. This message will just come up if there are any batches at all. So again, if you're confident that your batches are all posted, you've done all your adjusting journals, we can confidently click continue, and off it goes. Now, on the later versions of Dynamics GP, you can see there is a progress bar. Those of our clients who are on prior versions of Dynamics GP, you would not have the progress bar. You would just have to sit there and wait. You would see the hourglass. I suppose this is a good reason to upgrade to the latest version so you can benefit from all these lovely new features. One of the features I'll tell you in a minute is an absolute showstopper. So you get your reports, click OK. I, again, am sending them to screen. Personally, I've always printed these, saved these reports in either PDF or some other form, a digital form, so we can put them aside if ever we need to revert back to them, because once these reports are run, you can't run them again. As Adam explained previously with the other year-end close processes, they're produced at the point of year-end close. They're held in temp tables. Once they're cleared out at the end of the process, these reports are not accessible again. So it's a good idea to save these reports. Sometimes I have customers who have rung me and said, I forgot to either change my printer or change it from X to PDF, etc. I always say this, it's not the end of the world. You can always click the print button and we can go in and print them as a XPS file, should you wish. So under Microsoft XPS, you've got document. This will always be there if you're using a Windows-based system. This is, I suppose, if you want to call it Microsoft's version of PDF. You can then open them up in Internet Explorer. So again, I would print the reports and save them. Again, you have a variety of reports. Now notice in this bottom right-hand area, it says process complete. Again, prior versions, I do apologize, you do not have this option. It just comes back with the last year closing date, which has been updated. And you need to make sure that you are vigilant and you are reading the years correctly, because again, I'll go through some of the issues that we've had in the past. People have looked at it and thought maybe the process didn't complete because it didn't give a message at the end of it, and they've hit the close button again. No, please don't do that, because you'll be closing the following year. So that's always been the most common issue that we've had in this window, that sometimes users have accidentally clicked the close button twice because maybe the hourglass was there, they weren't too sure whether it was running or not. Hence, that's why they've put in the progress bar. Now you know why we take backups. However, if you're on the later versions, or the latest version rather, GP 2018 R2, which is what we're looking at right now, you have this little button here, which is an absolute gem. The amount of clients who have been crying out for this button, and now that it's here, it gives them more confidence. It empowers the end user to know that they've got control in their hands and they don't have to float backwards and forwards with backups, etc., going back to IT. This is a reverse historical year end. It does exactly what it says on the button. It reverses the historical year end. You can't go and reverse the historical year end from many years ago. It will reverse your last historical year end that you had. So if you wanted to reverse 2019 to 2020 or something, sorry, beg your pardon, 1999, I was going to say 98, 2001. No, it's not going to do that. Is it going to reverse last year's? Yes, it will. So people on the latest version, you have that option. So that brings us to the close of our year-end close, I suppose, excuse the pun. You can see there's quite a few ticks and checks that you need to go through. Once you've run your year-end process, again, you printed a trial balance at the beginning. Please print a trial balance for your new financial year. Make sure the figures are exactly as you are expecting them to be. Your retained earning figures have the balances that you are expecting them to be. You can go back and post audit adjustments into the historical year. It will do the necessary adjustments when you are posting, update your balance brought forwards and carried forwards. Typically, this is a question we get asked a lot. Oh, you know, my auditors are not here until many months or many weeks down the line, so how would I post any adjustments afterwards? Yes, you can post back to the historical year. It is also becoming more of a common practice now that users are taking what they call a backup. Once they've run a year end and you've confirmed all the figures are correct, they then take a backup. And this backup is held in case the auditors ever needed to go back a period of time and have a look at the data. We haven't, I don't think, Adam, have you ever heard of any auditor going back? However, I have seen clients who have asked for an auditor's copy of a backup. So if you do have that, if you do have that request, this is now the time to take that backup.
I have encountered in the past some auditors do have software that will read database tables for certain accounting systems. So when they're asking for a copy of the data as at a date, that's when this is coming really useful, because clients then been able to hand the auditor a backup as at year end, and the auditors are happy. They can go off, plug it into their software, and it loads up the data that they want, rather than them having to go in and try and analyze what doesn't need to be part of it.
Okay, yeah, well, there you go. As my colleague Adam has just said, with us, as you can imagine, we do come across a variety of auditing techniques, auditing requirements, auditing requests, and they all differ. So it purely is sometimes down to what your relationship is with your auditors. But if you have any questions at all, please don't suffer in silence. Get on the email, get on the phone to us here at Enhance, and we will be more than happy to guide you, help you, and give you all the information that you possibly need for your year. You should not panic. It's not, one of those edge of the cliff moments, when you're doing a year end. It's a normal process. I know there's clients out there who treat this as a very important task, and they're sometimes nervous. We understand that. We really do. We're not making the task any smaller than it is. However, we are here to help you. That is what we are here to do. We're with you all the way. If you need any detailed procedures on this, any further guides, please do get in touch with us. We'll only be more than happy to give you all the information that you need. Thank you for your time.
Right. I'm just going to quickly have a look at the questions bar to see what questions we have. I'll see how many we do have in their list. Expand that. But what I will possibly do with these is, as we're kind of running slightly over, I'm just going to I'll make a note of these questions, and what I will do is I'll get back to, as I said, we'll get back to everybody today with regards to what they are. And then that way I can go into some detail with you with regards to the questions that you've popped. So we'll make a note of those questions and who's asked them, and then we'll get back to you today with regards to those answers. Just a little update of some upcoming events that we've got going. Obviously, these are the events coming up in the next couple of months. We've got a webinar for Power BI on the 11th. We've got another one for Concur, which is an expense system that can be utilized and fed into Dynamics GP. That's in May. We've obviously got our VAT management module for Dynamics GP, which is more an advanced VAT module. And finally, on the 23rd of May, there's a business briefing in London. We're having a customer event, so if you actually want to come and see and meet Mansour and myself in person, you're more than welcome to come down and come and find us on that day.
Thanks, Adam. I just want to finish up on one note. I know we're a little bit over time. I do apologize. I know it's not directly related to our year-end processes, but in some ways it is. We are getting to 1st of April, the new tax year, which is coming in to force very, very soon. We've had a plethora of questions coming to us as consultants being out on the road. I just wanted to share that. I know it's not on the agenda, but I just wanted to quickly share it. A lot of questions coming around the new Making Tax Digital legislation, which HMRC has implemented. We do have a few worried clients out there, some concerned clients, for various reasons. They're either lack of knowledge, they don't know what's going on. Please, we are in the process of we have been doing this. We have MTD modules. There is also Making Tax Digital modules within the newer versions of Dynamics GP. We are currently in the process of enabling these features and implementing them for our clients. So if you have any queries, questions, concerns relating the new Making Tax Digital regulations from HMRC, please do get in touch with us in earnest, and we will be more than willing to help you. Thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you at our customer event very, very soon.